Hey, everybody. We talk a lot about the future of business on Punk Rock HR, but it's hard to look forward when you're stuck in the past, especially if your payroll and HR systems are there too. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about Intuit QuickBooks Payroll. QuickBooks isn't just accounting software. QuickBooks Payroll is your command center that connects payroll, time tracking, HR, and your financials in one place. Get real visibility into every dollar, every hour. No juggling systems or passwords. Since QuickBooks Payroll connects payroll, time, and accounting, you get a full financial picture and can make smarter decisions on the fly with full visibility. Stop letting outdated systems hold you back. Build the future of work your way. Learn more today at quickbooks.com/payroll.
RepCap is proud to support Punk Rock HR. We're B2B content marketing consultants that combine a journalist's curiosity with a marketer's creativity to tell clear, human stories that connect. From strategy to execution, we partner with brands to turn ideas into thought leadership and get real results. Want to learn more? Head over to repcap.com.
The experience is that a lot of white women, really consider ourselves to be progressive allies. We, voted for Kamala Harris and did all of the things. But in our interpersonal relationships, we continue to almost exclusively associate with other white women. We don't have any strong interpersonal relationships across difference. White women, we really need to step up.
Hey, everybody. I'm Lori Rudiman, and this is Punk Rock HR. My guest this week is Karen Fleshman, co-founder of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. Karen's here to talk about white women's power and responsibility at work and how she's building a community and coaching white women to become trustworthy allies. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, so if you're ready to think differently about the way you can improve work and our society, sit back and enjoy this chat with Karen on this week's Punk Rock HR. Hey, Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Lori. I'm so honored to be here with you.
Well, it's been a long time coming. You reached out to me about a year ago, and that's why you're on the show today. I'm going to talk about that. But before we get started, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you're all about?
Yes, thank you. I'm Karen Fleshman, and I work at the intersection of gender, race, and power. I'm the founder of something called the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. We are uniting women across difference to secure our collective safety and freedom.
Wow. Well, I want to unpack that a little bit. Like, why do you do what you do, and exactly what do you do?
Well, it's a long story, but it begins with a childhood in an almost entirely white community and a family moving to my town as refugees from the former Soviet Union, and their daughter becoming my lifelong best friend and really introducing me to how powerful it is to have friendships across difference and how to have a really healthy friendship between girls and later women. And then I had a career in the immigrants' rights movement. I transitioned to youth workforce development. And then through really listening to the young people that I was placing in internships and jobs in corporate America about their experiences in corporate America, realizing I needed to stop preparing young people of color for the workplace and start preparing the workplace for young people of color.
That makes sense to me. So you've gone on this journey with your career, and you reached out to me about the work that you do. So when you work with individuals, what do you do? Like, how are you coaching them? What's the work like?
Yes. So I work as a small group coach for white women on really unlearning our conditioning and learning new beliefs and behaviors about women, about race, about how we relate with women of color. and not so much the intellectual aspect. Obviously, I'm a big reader of all the books about racism and American history and all of that. But really, how do we embody those beliefs in our interpersonal interactions? And how do we build relationships based in trust across difference?
Yeah. When you reached out to me, I had a reaction like, why me? I'm one of the good ones. I do the work, right? So, but then I thought, no, that's problematic because the moment you start to think you're like the ally, the perfect person to step up and speak out, you start to realize like, I don't know, I've got my own flaws and I've got my own sordid history and kind of engagement with the world. So I wonder, when you reach out to white women like me and say, I'd like to help you do the work as a white woman, what reaction do you get?
Well, let's just say it's a very mixed reaction. I am not the beginner stage of anti-racism. I am for someone who's in the messy middle, right? Someone who recognizes that racism is a problem, recognizes that they have room to grow, and who really are highly motivated to grow in this area. And I think the experience is that a lot of white women, really consider ourselves to be progressive allies. We, voted for Kamala Harris and did all of the things. But in our interpersonal relationships, we continue to almost exclusively associate with other white women. We don't have any strong interpersonal relationships across difference. And, I'm friends with many, many Black women, deeply, mentors and guides in this work. And they are extremely disappointed with white women. Especially with the 2024 election and the fact that 92% of Black women showed up, not only voted for Kamala Harris, but fundraised, knocked doors, volunteered, did everything they could to mobilize their community. And for the third presidential election in a row, 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump. And especially now, Katika Roy's research has shown that 600,000 Black women were pushed out of the labor market in 2025. 872,000 men were hired. And I listened to a very interesting interview with Tressie McMillan Cottom, the sociologist who's New York Times columnist op-ed, where she said that white men came for Black women to punish them for radicalizing white women. So I say all this to say, white women, we really need to step up.
All right. So I'm going to ask some questions that may be a little delicate, but
Sure.
You're using the pronoun we when you talk about white women. So that includes you. I wonder where you got your education and where you felt empowered enough to talk to other white women about what Black women want and need when it comes to feeling safe in the workplace.
Well, I would say, let she who is without sin cast the first stone.
For sure, yeah.
I have caused my fair share of harm and received really strong feedback about it. So I grew up, as I mentioned, in an almost entirely white community. But throughout my career, I have always worked for organizations where white people were the minority. And actually, people of the global majority made up the majority of the workforce, as well as the majority of the people we were serving. I worked in small grassroots nonprofits, and then I worked for the City of New York Department of Youth and Community Development for 10 years, and I worked for Year Up, a youth workforce development nonprofit. And almost everyone I have reported to has been a woman of color. So they were extraordinary role models and gave me very direct feedback about my strengths and growth areas when it came to showing up and relating across difference. So I had a lot of really amazing mentors along the way. And then also working for Year Up, I became a mentor to many young adults of color as they began working in corporate America. And I say my mentees are my best mentors because they too had a lot to say about my strengths and growth areas, as well as just really educating me. And this is why I believe so strongly in the interpersonal relationship, because you can read all the books about racism, you can see the movies, go to hear the speakers. I do all of that. But by far, the greatest learning has come from my conversations with my friends. And once I had this realization that I needed to stop preparing young adults of color for the workplace and start preparing the workplace for young adults of color, amazing other mentors came into my life. People who have been doing DEI work, who've been doing civil rights organizing for a very long time. And they have been the ones who have definitely said to me, Karen, we need you. We need you to go out and reach and teach your people. You can reach them. You can speak with them in a way that they're not going to hear us. We've been saying this for a very long time. Please amplify what we have to say. And so that, and they hold me to account too. I can't just be out here, I can't just be out here pontificating from the perspective of Karen Fleshman. They're constantly in my ear, again, correcting me and holding me to account for what I do and encouraging me and role modeling me what to do.
Finding a great career has always been a challenge. But today, with the massive changes underway in just about every sector of the economy, in just about every country in the world, finding a great new career is even more challenging. And if you're a student, recent graduate, or someone else early in their career, it's even harder for you because you just don't have the experience that those who might be 10, 20, 30 years older than you have. The answer? The podcast, From Dorms to Desks, a podcast by College Recruiter job search site, where every week we take a deep dive into a topic specifically of interest to candidates who are early in their careers and looking for a great part-time, seasonal, internship, or other entry-level job.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I promise I will not belabor this point a little bit longer, but I think it's really important. During the pandemic and after the pandemic, and especially over the past couple of years, I've heard a lot of messages from friends of mine who are Black women who are like, you want to help us get out of the way, And so when I think about the work that it takes for white women to become educated, to create safe work environments, or just to get out of the way, I wonder, can a white woman teach that to another white woman?
What I can teach is an understanding of how we were conditioned to show up the way that we do, understanding of the beliefs and behaviors we need to adopt in order to create a workplace that is fair and equitable, and how to initiate and strengthen relationships across difference, how to earn trust, and then how to engage more white women to join in our movement. I believe strongly that interracial sisterhood and solidarity is essential for our collective safety and freedom. The United States is already among developed countries, by far, the most dangerous country to be a woman in. And this was before the Dobbs decision. Now, we already had the highest maternal mortality rate of any of the developed countries. And it's 3 to 4 times worse for Black women. And then you add the Dobbs decision. Now you have 2/3 of the states putting in place restrictions on reproductive care, and the maternal mortality rate is doubling in those states. Also, you have OBGYNs deciding to just leave because they don't want to face criminal prosecution. So it's creating reproductive healthcare deserts. So I could go on and on and on about it. It's not just us getting out of the way of Black women, of women of color. It is about women uniting and using our collective power to transform everything so that all women, girls, children, all people, I include men in this. I'm not anti-man. I am anti-white male supremacy, anti-patriarchy. But we have to unite and create a society where everybody is safe and free.
Well, I am so glad you brought that up, because sometimes we feel like the proximity to power is power ourselves. And I know as a white woman, I've had to do a lot of unlearning about that, and also about how as white women, even inadvertently, we reinforce stereotypes and we reinforce really bad habits and behaviors and systems that are not just oppressive to Black women and Black men, but also oppressive to ourselves. So you talk about the unexamined role of maintaining a racial hierarchy at work. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that and what that looks like day to day?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. White women were imported. White men imported white women to this country to be the HR of the plantation. Right? They had to be out there fighting the Revolutionary War and writing the Declaration of Independence and all that stuff. So they needed another set of eyes and ears maintaining order and enforcing everything and having children and teaching them how to maintain order on the plantation. And one book I highly recommend everybody read is Stephanie Jones Rogers' They Were Her Property, about the role of white women in slavery. And so much of today's dynamics in corporations are 100% rooted in the plantation, where white men in positions of power want white women to run HR, to maintain the order, to protect the institution, to protect the white male in power.
Hi, this is Stacey Harris.
And this is Terry Zipper. And we're the host of the 2 podcasts under the HR Huddle.
On Spilling the Tea on HR Tech, we uncover the latest trends, truths, and challenges from Sapient Insight Group's groundbreaking research and our analyst insights, serving up everything you need to know about HR tech with no sugarcoating.
And on HR, we have a problem. We tackle the toughest workplace challenges head on, offering you expert advice and actionable solutions to help HR leaders thrive in today's fast-changing world. Whether you want the scoop on tech or tools to solve people problems, we've got you covered.
Take a listen and subscribe. If you want to become part of our community, we'd love to see you.
I get what you're saying about white women's roles not being trustworthy. So how do we become trustworthy? What does that actually look like in practice as a white woman leader or an HR professional?
I think it has to do with really, like you talk about in your book, that we have to fix ourselves. Okay, the work, we can't fix the workplace. We got to fix ourselves, right? And it's unpacking the way that we have been conditioned throughout our lives to show up the way that we did. And that includes what we saw role modeled by our grandmothers, by our mothers, what we saw role modeled by our mentors, and the kinds of beliefs and behaviors we were rewarded and punished for throughout our lives. Really looking at that and understanding also this history of conditioning. I developed a lot more compassion for white women when I studied, as many of my mentors had told me, Karen, you really need to go back to Europe and understand what your ancestors' experiences were, why they came to this country. And when I started studying the witch hunt in Europe and understanding the ways that women were terrorized and executed in public executions, especially any women who were outspoken, who were older, who didn't like, having to become subsumed under male power, they were made into public spectacles, and the whole town would come out. They would put their children in the front row to watch them burn. And so we have a lot of intergenerational trauma as white women that we need to work through, that this notion that, to me, the root of our conflict with Black women have tremendous intergenerational trauma as well. And their go-to trauma responses are fight or flight. Get as far away from these people as possible. That's their survival instinct. For white women, we have intergenerational trauma too, but our go-to responses are freeze and fawn, like try to placate this man in position of power, because our survival has depended on our proximity to white men. So how are we going to stop these patterns of behavior and realize, okay, wait a second, now I have a college education. Now I have the capacity to be independent. Like, I don't have to fall in this pattern of behavior. I can, I know for HR, it's really tricky because you are literally there to protect the institution, right? Mm-hmm. I was an assistant general counsel. I was a director of internal review. And it's the same thing. You are there to protect the institution. And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. But in the end, is protecting white men who are sexually harassing people, for example, and getting the person who complains about the sexual harassment to leave, is that really protecting the institution, or is that enabling terrible behavior? And I think we have to have a crisis of conscience as white women. This particularly bothers me because I have 2 children who are teenagers, and I can't bear the idea that on my watch, they will have fewer rights than I did at their age. They have fewer rights than I did at their age, and they are going to be impacted throughout their life. They're not going to be able to have the kind of life that I did. And I want to do everything I can to ensure that they have more rights than I did, not fewer.
This speaks to me because I have 4 great-grandmothers, just like everybody else, and all 4 of mine are my great-grandmothers through arranged marriages. And I know 2 of them particularly were in very difficult, abusive arrangements. And one of them had a heart attack and said, I don't want medical treatment. The next time I have a heart attack, I just want to die. And she did. So this intergenerational trauma, this human trafficking of women, all of that speaks to me. And I've done the work on it, and I understand how it informs my worldview. And it also makes me appreciate with gratitude the opportunity that I had being a Gen X woman to not only supersede their condition, but also my grandmother and my mother as well. And to see those rights being walked back for all women, not just white women or Black women or Latino women, right? Or women of Southeast Asian descent, right? All women in America is just sickening to me. That being said, when I think about the work that needs to be done, I don't know where to start beyond doing the things that I've been doing, right? So getting educated, reading, having amazing friends from multiple communities, acknowledging my biases, taking feedback with grace and humility, right? All of the things. That's where I think your work can be interesting for so many people who want to be better allies. So when you work with someone like me or someone in the HR community who's curious about doing things differently and being a better ally, what's the work that you actually do?
Well, my Becoming Trustworthy program is in 6 stages, and it's conversation. We're with a group of women, a small group of women from all over the country, different generations, different professions, but all really committed to becoming stronger sisters. I don't really like the term ally. I want us to be really in solidarity. And what does that mean as white women? And so there's readings, there's reflection questions, videos that we watch between the sessions. And then during the sessions, we do some meditation. Because it's really about embodying these things, not just like thinking about them, but how do we heal from our intergenerational trauma? How do we stop with the fawning and the freezing? How do we have more compassion with ourselves, which is the foundation for having compassion with others? Those are the types of conversations that we're having. And people really like the intergenerational aspect of it and also the interregional aspect of it, because it is kind of different, in different settings, but the overall theme is very similar.
Well, I really wish you such good luck with your work. It's needed, it's meaningful. And if people want to work with you, can you first describe your ideal client?
Yes. My ideal client is someone who cares deeply about being more ethical and responsible, recognizes they have room to grow, is a white woman, maybe she's just become active politically, and she notices the group that she's active with, almost everybody there is white, and she really wishes it could be more multiracial, but when people show up, they often don't come back. So how do we kind of change those dynamics? Or a white woman who is a working professional and notices there's some exchanges she has in the workplace with women of color that feel very tense. And she's trying to figure out what is going on and how might she change, or how might she better understand what is going on. Those are my ideal clients. They can contact me on Interracial Sisterhood Coalition.com. There's a contact, or they can, there's Becoming Trustworthy is a link, and you can just click in there and join the wait list to join the next cohort.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you took some time today to kind of walk us through who you are, what you do, why you do it, how you make a difference in this world, and how people can connect with you. If there's one thing you'd like to leave our audience with today, what might that be?
Actually, there's 2 things. I highly recommend everybody read this book. It's called Our Separate Ways, Black and White Women and the Struggle for Professional Identity. It's from Harvard Business School Press, and it's written by Ella Bell and Stella Nkomo, who are Black women business school professors. They studied the first generation of women to make it to the managerial and executive level in corporate America, and compared the experiences of Black and white women. And it's a very, very, very informative book. I highly recommend. The other one is Erased, What American Patriarchy Has Hidden from Us by Anna Malika Tubbs. This is also imperative reading for American women.
And what's on your bookshelf right now? What are you reading next?
What I am reading next is All We Want Is Everything by Soraya Shamali. I love this woman. This is a great, great, great book.
We love a book recommendation on Punk Rock HR, so thanks for 3 of them. That was amazing. Listen, it was really my pleasure to host you today. And remind everybody, what's the website that they can go to?
Interracial Sisterhood Coalition.com.
Karen, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you, Lori. My honor. Thank you so much for giving me this platform. I really, really appreciate everything you have built, everything you have done to make the workplace more fair and equitable, and keep going punk rock all the way.
Well, you know what? Now that we've had this conversation, it's time for me to do a little bit more reading. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Karen Fleshman. Here are 3 takeaways from that episode that stuck with me. First, you've got to do the work. You can't show up for others, especially if you work in HR, if you haven't looked at your own story and how it shaped you. Second, real change isn't about learning a new set of rules. It's about questioning what you already believe and finding a community where it's safe to do that. Third, know your history, especially if you look like me. White women have played specific roles in power systems, and those patterns don't just disappear. You have to see them to change them. If you'd like more information from Karen, visit Interracial Sisterhood Coalition.com. Punk Rock HR is produced by RepCap. They're a B2B content marketing agency who help organizations tell clear human stories that connect. Whether you need strategy, customer interviews, or full production support, RepCap turns complex ideas into compelling content that moves business forward. Learn more at repcap.com. Punk Rock HR can also be found on the Work Defined podcast network, along with hundreds of other work-focused shows. To listen or learn how to advertise, head on over to workdefined.com. That's WRKdefined.com. And finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you stream it. It really helps the show. Now that's all for today. I've got some advice for you. Be safe, be kind, and don't sell out.